mic check, please.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jennings.
I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brazier.
My name is John Gordon. I'll be your host.
And I'm your host, Katie Burke.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. We bring the resource to you. The DU Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, John Gordon. It's February, and out there in waterfowl land, basically what's left is conservation snow goose hunting. And that's what brings my two guests today together, is a mutual love of chasing the white goose around the Arkansas Delta. So I want to welcome Chase Gartner, the owner-operator of Nomad Outfitters, and Kristian Lilley, Aberdeen Wild Wings from Aberdeen, Scotland. Guys, welcome to the DU podcast.
Thanks for having us, John.
Pleasure to be here.
You know, I guided snow goose hunts for a long time, and we talked about this before, that it's not for the faint of heart. You know, a lot of folks will come in for 3-4 days, but they don't know what the real grind is of doing this on a day-to-day basis. So, I mean, you two haven't slept a whole lot, I don't believe, in the last, since the season opened. The weather's been crazy to start the season. We had an ice storm now it's back up to 65-degree temps.
Yep.
Rain, sun, wind, no wind. It's been a crazy up and down season so far. Interesting how the two of you came together. Okay, so I want to talk about that a little bit. I mean, Chase, you're originally from Nebraska, am I correct?
That's right. Yes,
right.
sir.
And then, of course, Kristian, you've got a very interesting backstory, the fact that you were born in South America and then traveled to Scotland. So talk a little bit about how y'all came together in the Arkansas Delta.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially this day and age, social media it plays such a big part in, I think everyone being able to meet people across the world. And obviously, I've been very lucky to have hunted with some great people over the years. And I think one of the places I hadn't been before was Arkansas. I've been very lucky to hunt in South Dakota, Nebraska, Missouri. And Arkansas was another place on the list. So it was obviously for me to try and find somebody to hunt with and potentially look at being able to take clients over from Scotland and Europe. So we stumbled, it seems like, honestly, years now we've been friends.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's exactly that. We've shared some fun memories along the way, but pretty much had reached out to Chase and, he was just great from the get-go. And I think almost within a few months, I think it was before my season in Scotland started, that I'd kind of looked into it and we spoke about it. And then before I knew it, February came. My season's from October to January, so obviously it just lines in perfectly for then coming over for conservation season here in Arkansas in February. So yeah, I think it was kind of just, it happened straight away, and I think we never looked back since. And it was one of the best things I did was obviously reaching out, and it's great because you do get to meet so many different people from across the world, and I think everyone shares the kind of same passion from there. So it's not like there's something that you're not going to click with. And it's kind of just grown from there over the years. And, here I am, and, for all my sins, I keep coming back.
Well,
it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, and it's interesting how the three of us met. People can see this all on DU Nation, our YouTube series. Ben Vaughn, our South Minnesota regional director, it was interesting, the story he told me as well, that he had joined the Marine Corps, really, to see the world. Well, as circumstances had it, when he joined the Marine Corps, we kind of had a little problem with Iraq at that point, and he ended up in Fallujah and never really saw anything other than the desert. And so he's out of the Marine Corps, going on with his life, and he's kind of lamenting the fact that I never got to see anything. So his wife, being a good wife, said, "Well, why don't you go do it? Just start going places and seeing it." And so he looks into things, and he said he really wanted to go someplace different. So he looked into it and said, goose hunting in Scotland, that would be something that's pretty cool. So, and that's, of course, rest is history. He goes over there and meets you.
Yeah, it's so funny. We were just talking about this earlier, and it was really nice to see somebody who's obviously so interested in exploring somewhere else. And obviously, the first trip for him, the fact that he would consider coming to Scotland was quite a big deal. It was obviously a big deal for him, a big deal for me too, because he went about it the right way, obviously all the right questions, making sure we could get him all the right references too. And it's obviously quite an important one for we do get guys coming from the States. It's something different, not so much for the UK and Europe for guys to do that, but from the States, I suppose it's good for them to know that they're hopefully going with a reputable guide, outfitter, especially if it's the first time going somewhere different. So it was really good to obviously catch up with him. We had the pleasure of hosting him for, I think it was a 6-day trip. Again, it seems like years ago too, because we've obviously been friends ever since. And I think it was a nice chance for us to find out more about each other, obviously with what I do as an outfitting business over in Scotland, and obviously Ben's involvement with Ducks Unlimited, over the years too, because I hadn't quite making that as well known at the time, which was really nice for me to find that out about him and then be able to ask more of the questions as we got to know each other. And that way it felt like it was a really good start to a good friendship and, a good working relationship over the years too. And it's something that was very interesting for me because we don't have, too many organizations that would be as focused on conservation and the likes from there. Certainly coming from the Scotland and UK, it's very different in regards to the way hunting's perceived, guns and that kind of thing. So it was really nice just to be able to kind of build upon that. And, it's hard to believe that that's kind of where I am now. There's a lot of, great things that we've, been through over the years and, all because of Ben. So absolutely, it's been a great ride so far.
Right. And folks in the audience need to know that you can go to events in Minnesota. You and Ben have put packages together for people to come over and join you in Scotland, not only just, for waterfowl, but for big game as well.
Yeah, that's been a new one for us for this year, which has been really interesting to see just how well received it's been. I couldn't believe when, Ben came up with the idea. It was, I thought, great. It's something different from the waterfowl. We'd done that over the years. It'd been, very successful, which made complete sense. But he made the suggestion of let's try something different. And obviously, something we have back in Scotland is a very big population of deer, roebuck, red stag, fallow deer, sika deer. But obviously, something we specialize in big time is roebuck hunting. In Aberdeenshire, famed for that throughout the world for having some phenomenal bucks. So it was very cool to be able to speak with him and put together a package that would be able to encompass, all the kind of things we'd been doing with the waterfowl hunters, making sure that you can still experience castle tours, whiskey tours, all the other fun things that make Scotland. It's obviously famed for its golf, plenty other things like I've just mentioned there, but the hunting side's often overlooked. So it's obviously more of a spring, summer activity. So it's nice to be able to put something together that it's going to offer so many people the different chances to come with, their hunting partners, families, everything. I think I just couldn't believe how well it's gone down. Ben and I talked about it last year. I think just before my waterfowl season began, and I said, yeah, here, let's run with this, and you do what you can. And I couldn't believe the interest was just incredible.
Yeah, and Ben was telling me some of the numbers that they've raised for the ducks, through those hunts, and man, we can't thank you enough for that. Kristian. It's for guys like you and Chase as well who really helped make all this run. Chase, I want to talk to you for a second. Give us a little bit about who you are, your background, how did you get started in outfitting, and especially why the snow? Because most people shy away from them, man. It's tough.
Yeah, absolutely, John. This is my 6th year operating Nomad Outfitters. Used to work for a couple other Snow Goose outfitters in my younger years. Just kind of finally realized that I want to take the jump, go get into it on my own. Had a better idea of how I want to run the hunts, treat my clients, treat my help and stuff like that. And it's been 6 years since I started. And I've known Kristian for 5 of those years. And every year that I've been doing it and then that he's been helping me, I definitely feel like we've just kind of gotten bigger and better. And every season's been better. And I mean, the snow goose chase, especially what we do in Arkansas, moving fields every day, moving the spreads every morning, it is so much work. Most people don't understand, but once you experience it and are able to get, that big spin, like we call it, once you experience that one time, you'll be hooked for life. And that's kind of where Kristian and I are at right now with that game.
The way y'all do it, I think you've described it as high risk, high reward.
Yes, absolutely.
Because chasing the feeds is a recipe for killing nothing or killing a bunch sometimes, because they're so unpredictable. That's what people don't understand about white geese. Is that I don't understand what they're thinking sometimes. Just because you saw them somewhere does not mean they're coming back there. And they could be, and they'll hop all over the place. And a plane could get them up, anything else. And so you're taking a chance. But and down here in the wintering area, I very much understand it. Now the guys up farther through the flyway, I could see the permanent spread, South Dakota, Missouri,
exactly,
places like that where they hunt them. When they're strictly migrating, and so it's a different type of stuff. They've been here the whole winter.
Yep, staging birds.
Down here. So you got birds coming up from the south. You got adults leaving. You got more birds coming in. So it's definitely a monster challenge. So I commend you for focusing on white geese, man, because you have to be brave to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult.
Exactly.
In the course of guiding too, which I did it in Texas for many years when it was there. The cast of characters that you meet along the way, both in clients and other guides, is pretty amazing. On the DU Nation episode, we were with a group of guys and a gal from South Florida, that place where they don't get a whole lot of opportunities to hunt waterfowl, especially not white geese. There's none down there, right? And those guys were just so generous. They cooked for us. So. I mean, they did everything, and the people you meet at camp sometimes are really good. And they went full Braveheart for you, Kristian. With the face paint and all that. Yeah, people. Once again, this is going to be on DU Nation, but. And I really like the young cast of guides you put together, Chase. Those kids are hard workers.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
I got a chance to hunt next to Colby, and Colby gotten the nickname Skeeter. And how did that come about?
It's a long story. There's a wildlife refuge area in Texas called Skeeter Pond. Some of you out there listening might be familiar with it. He's just kind of well known for taking some pictures of himself with ducks in front of the Skeeter Pond sign. And that's how he caught on to that nickname Skeeter that everyone loves so much.
You've got another really good young guy named Hunter from Minnesota.
Yep.
And the Southern guys are always relentless on the Yankee, right? And
they are.
He was really giving it to Hunter before the hunt started the other day, and man, I just couldn't do it but laugh. And it brought back so many memories of me with other guys and over the years, and the fact that you really kind of you bond with each other like other guys don't, because in the pursuit of white geese.
Yep.
And it takes a certain character to really want to do it. And I saw it right there as those are the same guys that I've always been with for my whole career, chasing those jokers around. Kristian, okay, born in Bolivia, correct? Okay, so give us a little feel of how in the world you ended up in Scotland.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting mix. Very lucky, obviously, from a very young age. I was actually adopted. My parents came from Northern Ireland, and they moved over to Aberdeen, where we live in Scotland, for the oil industry. So many years ago, it is now. And luckily, I was obviously raised in the countryside. My dad was very big into field trial with Springer Spaniels. So that's kind of where it all began, where I would say from a very young age, almost strapped to the back of my dad, was out there in the field helping him train dogs. And it was just part of my life. And obviously where we live there, it's obviously a very big culture of driven hunting and walked up, which would be upland over here. And where we actually live in Aberdeenshire, it's a very big place for waterfowl too. And I think it's something from that side of things kind of really just got me into, really wanted to obviously pursue goose and duck hunting from there, but just super grateful the fact that to think where I could be obviously now, and I've lived such a great life and had the privilege to be able to be brought up in Scotland to actually pursue this, especially to then obviously for me it was very much a big passion, a hobby, hunting, and then to be able to turn that into a career. And here I am finding myself over here in the headquarters of Ducks Unlimited. It's kind of hard to believe. Very cool experience, and something I have to say, you just can't take these things for granted. I had to remind myself of that. Been very lucky to have been raised by great parents, obviously back home in Scotland, and again, I have to give them the credit for everything, for raising me this way and encouraging me to work hard. And I absolutely kind of follow your dreams. As kind of sad as that might sound, it's an important one to keep going from there, and that's why I'm here. As a guide, I want to continue to better myself, and by coming over here to obviously guide snow geese for Chase at Nomad, it gives me the chance to essentially progress my own skills, to be able to then take things that I do here in Arkansas back to Scotland. There's a lot of things that you can say are very similar in the way you set things up and how birds behave. And I think for me, it's making me a more well-rounded hunter, as the years go on.
It's got to, because just dealing with you hunt pink-footed geese, right?
Yeah,
for the most part,
that's correct.
And from what I've been able to gather from, I have no experience firsthand, but they seem pretty similar to the white goose in how and their behaviors. And let's just face it, they're quirky.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of similarities. I think that's why it brings me, back year after year. That you can have the most amazing days. They give you big spins. They put on a real show. And the next day, they leave you scratching your head. You've done everything you possibly can to read them. Obviously, whether you're scouting every hour of the day, whether you've been there setting up since 2 o'clock in the morning, a massive big spread. A lot of the time, you just have to do the best you can, control the variables you can with regards to all the scouting, the wind, your setup. Which this is why for me it's just so comparable to the snow geese. And then when you do have your good day, immediately all those other times that you were kind of beating your head against the wall, you forget about them pretty quickly.
That's right, man. There's nothing that brings you back. That's almost a parallel with golf. You can hit 100 crap shots,
right?
You hit one pure shot. Oh man, it just it keeps you coming back to that game once again. Make you beat your head against the wall. Interesting, you're talking about dogs, because a lot of people start out that way. Dogs bring people into the hunting sports in a lot of different ways, and it's interesting. Chase and I've got a mutual friend in Mark Atwater. I've had Mark Atwater on the DU podcast. I've had him on DU Nation. I've had him on DU Films. So I've really, because of our mutual love of golden retrievers, and y'all met Buster. My dog.
We have Buster. We love Buster.
Buster is awesome, man.
Bring him in here.
We could sit. Buster just would hang out with us. So that's an interesting part. That it was dogs that really got you going, and your dad troweling springers over there in Scotland. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool part of it. All right, folks, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back with more on the DU podcast. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. My guest today, Chase Gartner of Nomad Outfitters, and Kristian Lilley with a K, Aberdeen Wild Wings in Aberdeen, Scotland. And once again, thanks, guys, for being here on the DU podcast. I want to switch gears a little bit. We've been talking about snow geese, but we haven't really talked about snow geese in depth and about what it takes to be successful on white geese. And I think determination might be the biggest factor it takes to be successful on snow geese.
Absolutely.
Never giving up on them, because, boy, if you're easily discouraged as a hunter, don't be a white goose hunter, because they're going to make you so frustrated that you'll quit. That's the biggest thing that I found out about them as guiding them, was that, man, you got to have some thick skin, and you're going to have to take those good days with the bad. And it's not going to be. It's not for somebody who like I said, it's easily dissuade. So I'm going to ask you this first, Kristian. as somebody who hunts, a different species of goose over there in Scotland, what is it that you think makes a successful snow goose hunter?
Gosh, I think there's so many different things that kind of come into my head, but I think going back to the determination, you have to be willing to go out there to give it your best and be able to accept anything that's going to be thrown at you. That it's going to change. You can go out and you can have the best feed with the birds that you think are the right ones. You have a good hide. You have everything you could possibly need, from motion to the right full bodies. And for whatever reason in that day, those birds may just do everything the complete opposite of what you want them to do. You have to be ready for the next day to have a clear head, to go back at them and not let them beat you down. And I think it's like Chase did say earlier with regards to what keeps you coming back. When you get that one spin and everything falls into place, it just makes.
And we had a couple of good ones on DU Nation,
yes,
and it's just nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It makes all those bad memories go away in that one moment, and you realize, oh well, this is why I'm out here. This is why I do it. Would you agree with that, Chase? You got a different take on it?
I would say exactly what Kristian said. You have to have a short memory. You have to have thick skin. And then every day you go out there, you have to have confidence in yourself, your guides, your setup, knowing that you are putting in 100% effort and to try to trick these geese that are getting smarter and smarter every year. And you might do everything in your power, and it might not happen that morning. It might not happen the next day. But then the day it does happen, you just forget about the rough days, And I don't care who you are, how good of a snow goose hunter you say you are, everybody has bad days.
Oh, that's the truth.
Absolutely.
If you're telling everybody that you're making the piles every day, you're not being truthful about it, because it's not the way it happens. Right. And I think that's a big thing you face with snow goose hunting, especially now in the era of the conservation season now for like the 21st year, is unrealistic expectations from people. Okay,
yes.
They're expecting to have these massive slaughters all the time, and it because all they've ever seen on video is people's best hunts.
Right.
And this started way back when. I can remember as a kid in the Texas coast, which we had all the white geese at that point, but the population hadn't really boomed the way it has in the past couple of decades. So the limit was 5.
Yep.
Okay, when I was growing up, it was 5. You could kill 5 white geese, 1 Canada, 1 speck. So 7 geese, per man. I mean, that's still a great hunt. Any way you slice it. I mean, that's a great hunt at all. But that kept people's expectations to be like, and then the limit became 7, and then it became 10, and then it became 20. And all of a sudden, the number 20 got in people's heads, and I saw it, guiding people. And this is back in the days before the conservation season, no electronic collars. We were, using mouth calls, and boy, really grinding out there. They're thinking, oh, this limit's 20, man. It's just going to be easy. And I'd have to tell people right off the bat, look, we haven't had a limit shoot the entire season, okay?
It's still
Think
hunting.
about it. Yeah, I mean, think about it. You got 5 guys out there. It's 100 bird limit with 20, and it's like, man, I'd almost wish they'd have done no limit at that point. It's been like no limit. Then nobody has any number in their head, because it got guys thinking. I think one of the best ones I can remember in Texas that we had was like 170 birds shoot, but there was a lot of guns involved. There was like 12 guns. Okay. So that was still way, way short of the full limit.
Right.
And people just couldn't understand, how this wasn't easy, and man, they figured it out pretty quickly that this is not going to be what we thought it was, and but a lot of guys still kept coming back, because like you're right, you'll within a 3-4 day trip, you're going to have that one day where they're going to do it, and it's thrilling to say the least. As far as advice goes for snow goose hunters, what's the one thing other than just being determined and everything that you think is the most important part of having success with them? Does it involve setting up? Does it involve hiding?
Scouting.
What do you think? Scouting, number one? I think that may be the one.
I mean, for what we do, I would say
if it wouldn't be scout first, because you need to be, ideally what you're hoping to do is to put yourself on the X, on a feed where the birds are, hopefully you could be working with the right birds, even if you're not, birds are birds, adults, juvies. If you are not out there burning up, the diesel to find them, you're losing half the battle to begin with. I think the next thing which kind of close in with that is to take the time in your hide. I think more than anything else, a lot of people overlook decoys. Obviously, the setup is super important too, but in terms of hide, I think it's probably one of the most crucial things I would always say that people will fall short of. If you're having to brush blinds when you think you've got enough cover, get more.
You double it at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Never enough.
It's never enough. You're right. The snows just become so wary over the years, because I think it's a lot of it's because of age. The average adult is 8, 12 years old.
Yep.
I mean, they have seen it all. They've been shot up and down the flyways for years, and so they're very, they're not coming to just anything. Juvenile birds, Ross geese, another thing. They just haven't seen it. Where and Rosses may have, but I don't know, poor little Ross goose. I mean, I feel sorry for them sometimes.
Yeah,
they just they can't help themselves, but they make a lot of slow hunts pretty good. When it comes down to it.
Absolutely.
So, well, that's what I thought. I mean, and I think another thing people don't really realize is how close attention you have to pay to the weather and what weather you're going to have on any given day, because it's so critical. Wind direction, sun, no sun, wind speed, all of it plays a factor in what you're going to do.
Yep, lots
how
of
you're going to
variables
set
there.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it any different in Scotland as far as it goes, or just same situation?
It's the same world over. I think those are some of the most crucial things that I always say, that you want to control every possible element that you can, and then you're obviously going to have something like you said with the wind is the wind, the moon. These are all elements that you can't control. You're kind of in God's hands, as it were, and it absolutely does play a big part in how the hunt is going to potentially maybe turn out. But again, you're still doing the best with your ability from past hunts, experience that you have hunting in similar situations, to go, okay, this is what we're going to do on this particular day. We're meant to have wind. We now have like 2 mile an hour wind, so you might as well have no wind. This is what we're going to do. I think you've got plan A, you have to have a plan B and be ready to roll that out as soon as you can.
Another thing that I don't think people take into consideration, I've seen this all my entire life, from hunting with all kind of different people from all over the place. They'll take a lot of time in having the best and newest jackets and pants and clothes and guns. They don't spend any time learning how to shoot those guns. Okay?
That's a big problem, John.
They don't spend any time learning how to hit anything flying on the wing.
Yes.
And I think that's the most overlooked thing, and I keep telling people, but learn how to shoot. If you think you're going to be on the ground, go to a skeet field and sit on the ground.
Yeah, practice.
Practice, sitting up, shooting.
Yes.
It would make such a huge difference in people's experience, and that's the most overlooked thing I think that they do, is they don't know how to shoot. And
going to play this for the future clients.
That's right.
Yes.
And their equipment doesn't work. Their guns don't work. They're not clean. I mean, they don't even function.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
gosh.
If you're going to come on a trip, take the time to travel, pay money to come hunt with a guide, clean your gun before you come, go to the clay range, the skeet range. I've just seen it way too much where you get one big spin, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, and there's always a couple guys that their guns aren't working. And we genuinely feel bad for them. And it's just such a...
But then again, it's not your fault.
It's, it's disappointing for them, and it's a little frustrating for us at the same time.
Yeah, and along those same lines, you can get into often this whole rabbit hole of shotgunning, and shooting things flying. But, know your gun. Yeah, a lot of people are showing up with brand new equipment they've never fired.
Very good point.
Different
Different shells.
Don't know anything about it.
They got a deal of shells on something. A new choke tube, a combination of everything all together, and they just expect it to just be put it together, make it work, and
it doesn't. I think people are too tightly choked these days in a big way.
Big time.
I agree. I agree.
For most that aren't used to shooting that way, I mean, we've seen examples even in the past week we've been here. We've had some amazing spins, and it's almost hard to believe when you don't see some of the rainouts. But even then, sometimes it outweighs it in a way that the experience alone, it's still fantastic for everyone to see.
And a big part of it, I think, too, with that is with guys using extensions especially, they're just shooting at air. They're not picking out birds either. That's a huge part of it, especially with a big number of birds.
Yeah.
Focus on one until it's down, and then another.
Yes.
And then it's hard to do when there's 200 in your face.
Right.
And they just start rattling away like machine gunning, and it doesn't work well either.
People get excited, which is good. It's a good thing.
It is good, but to a point. Like I said, the success rate would be a lot higher if they would just follow those things. Kristian, we talked about this at length, and we talked about it today as well, that North America is kind of unique in the fact that it's a very conservation-minded group of individuals, both hunters and non-hunters, people who are really concerned about the resource. In Europe, Great Britain, it doesn't seem to be the case. Am I correct?
Yeah, I would say it's very different, just the way that obviously in the States, I think there's a lot closer connection with certainly with hunting and the conservation side of things, that there's many people over here that do it. It doesn't matter whether from the city or whether from the country. As we're back home, certainly in the UK as a whole, those that hunt or participate in anything that would be kind of field sports related, we are very much the minority. There are a few organisations, obviously back in the UK, which would be doing their best to ensure that both hunting, shooting, all the outdoor pursuits that we have, that they're trying to protect everything as a whole, which is obviously very tough, especially the way things are across the world with regards to gun control. It's very easy for them to put a lot of that onto just, the guns and the gun ownership, as opposed to obviously those that are using guns for legally hunting and so on from there. And I would say they bypass very much the traditional side of, the sporting, lifestyle that there is within Scotland, the whole of the UK. And I think with that, there are certainly organisations that do try and focus on the conservation side of things, but I think there could be a lot more that is done. And even then, it would be better if there were, organisations kind of such as this, obviously with Ducks Unlimited, been able to focus on, the conservation more, but in a way that it can be relatable to the general public. And I think that's where, if you're a hunter, you're a hunter. As a hunter, it doesn't matter from one side of the world to the next. Everyone, we understand our own fight that we have. But when you're trying and recruit, new people that want to get into this, or indeed, bring on the younger generation, because it's like, for me, those are fond memories that, like I've just talked about, being out in the field with my father, while he's, training all the spaniels. These are things that there's probably many kids out there, for certainly back in the UK, that it's not as socially acceptable for them to be doing some of the same things that I did as a kid. And, I'm a father myself, and, I have a 10-year-old daughter who I absolutely love, that she's kind of following in my footsteps to an extent that she wants to be out and enjoying the outdoors. And this is where, for me, I want to instill in her for years to come, that we're the custodians of the countryside, as is the way we see it back in the UK, and that there are many other organisations that they understand where we need to be. It's, I think, how we reach that end goal. And I think for our side of things, we could be doing with having more organisations to come together, if there was one bigger one that would allow us to be able to see that we are doing a lot more, for the wildlife. And I think that's one of the most interesting parts, that when I first met Ben, that you can learn so much from reading books or in magazines or seeing it on Facebook or YouTube, whatever it is. But when you're actually, speaking to somebody, and you can tell the passion, the things that Ben was telling me over the years and so on, it made me feel that, if I can give something back, especially, through DU, it's been a pleasure for me to do so, because I can see how much that's really going back into, helping people. And I would love to be able to do things like that, and I have done things similar back home in the UK, but it's only my own personal opinion that I don't believe that it's been delivered in such an extent as it has been over here. So this is why I've continued to want to support through, obviously, doing auctions with Ben, and I think it's helped broaden my horizon of just where we need to be back in the UK, but I think we are still a while away of, even a tiny bit where, likes of DEU is just now. And, I'd love to see that change. I really would. And, hope that certainly in the years coming, that certainly some of the organizations might be able to get together and, use DEU as a better example of where we need to be.
Agreed. I think we're fortunate here in the U.S., and I know, Chase, you would agree that we've got a bunch of organizations around the country.
Oh yeah, no question.
Devoted to conservation that they don't have, and as being a part of Ducks Unlimited, I can really appreciate guys like Ben Vaughn. Right, the guys who are on the ground with the volunteers, working with the college kids, the varsity students in high school and everything, really bringing them into the next generation of it, and then making relationships with guys from not only in North America at this point, around the world, to really furthering the DU mission. So the unsung hero, the regional director for Ducks Unlimited, for folks who don't know, that's the guy behind the scenes at every banquet, and he's there. You may not know who he is, but he's there, working hard to raise more money for wetlands conservation. This has been great. I like to close out a lot of podcasts with talking about favorite hunts. or just ones that end up be a favorite, or it's very memorable hunts. And we've been talking snow geese, and y'all are both big time snow goose hunters. So think back in your mind, just give me a snow goose hunt that you can look back on it and say, man, I'll never forget about that. So I'm gonna start with you, Kristian.
Gosh, there's probably so many of them to look back on for all the good reasons and the bad reasons. But certainly for me, I mean, I've had some very memorable hunts with Chase over the years. I think especially because it's allowed me to be so involved with the whole setup of everything from the spreads, the way that we run the clients, all these kind of things. I've taken a lot with that, being able to put my own touches onto the way the hunts are delivered, and I feel there's certainly been one particular one where we've had with some of the Wisconsin guys, and
yes,
I think when you have such a great team of guys that everyone's there to have fun, I think sometimes it's very easy to get caught up on the numbers game and all that kind of side of things. But when you're out there to have fun, and everything else comes together, everything else is just a bonus. And I think the fact that you can share the field with people and have such a great time and still have a successful hunt, then across the board it's been an absolute win.
Yeah, no matter how many birds you shoot, I think right with snow goose hunting, a lot of it, like I said, once again, it's the people you're hunting with that make a huge difference.
Yes.
I've been with a lot of folks who were just like you said, just focused on how many can we take down, and not really taking in the whole experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a big part of it. Chase, you got a hunt that just comes to your mind?
The one that really sticks out is probably about 6 years ago in Arkansas. It was during the conservation season. We had a group of 6 clients, some older gentlemen, super nice guys. They did not have extension tubes, and we were able to shoot, I think, 276, and they were still coming in, and we had shot that many, and they just looked at me and said, I think we're good. I think that's enough.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, let's keep going. But then I realized that, hey, it's your hunt. This is what you're here for. It was just really amazing that we did that well and that we got to that point. Could have kept shooting, but we didn't because I did my job and they were basically tired. Their shoulders were worn out.
That's right. And well, Kristian, you probably experienced that too in a place that has no limit. In Scotland, guys that are like, wow, we've had enough of it.
We do, and I think that this is always a big one that gets posed to me. We have no limits, so everyone comes with their expectations. It's kind of like conservation season here that you have to shoot as many as you can. I like to self-impose a limit, but at the same time, we will get a lot of hunters that come from the States where limits, it's just in them. Same with a lot of French clients too, and where the perception would be, it's funny from kind of British people looking out, looking in, if you like, from there, that they would think that these guys want to shoot, piles all day. The amount of people that I've had come from the States and France that I would say for my self-imposed limit, they've shot less than that. But what I pride myself on more than anything else is I would rather shoot 20 decoyed birds than 70 or 80 birds that are 40, 50 meters out. And I think, yeah, exactly, it hits home for a lot of people that there are so many people out there that we share the same ideology. And again, it comes back, don't get me wrong, you can want to pile them up as much as anybody else, but if I'm doing my job and I'm putting the birds in their face, on their lap, and these guys are struggling to shoot them at 10 yards, or they're having a look at birds. We know when I call the shot, they get up and they go, "It's too close. What one do I shoot?" And for me, it's awesome to see that you've been able to exceed someone's expectations and that they've been able to, have the respect for themselves to go, "Hey, I'm done. We've got 3 more days left. If I shoot another 60 birds, and we're done within half an hour, we've had a great time." So.
Yeah, in DU history, there was a lot of guys like Nash Buckingham. We were up front, Bo 2 and 1 are up there.
Oh yeah,
and he was one of those guys that even the limits were big. He self-imposed on himself that he wasn't going to shoot the limits anymore. He was going to go below that, and I get it. After you can only do so much with it, and then it becomes a little excessive. So, I've been fortunate, just like the two of you have, to have harvested a lot of birds in my life. So at this point, it's really all about the experiences, man. And I had a great time on DU Nation with y'all. It, like I said, from the Florida crew to the young guys out there, man, busting their butts trying to make it happen. It was a great experience. Once again, everybody can check out DU Nation on YouTube. We've got a lot of content up now at this point, but this will be our first snow goose hunting episode. And once again, I got to shout out to Ben Vaughn.
Thank you,
for
Ben.
putting this together.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, we owe a lot to you. Absolutely. I'm sorry you couldn't be here to join us today, Ben, but absolutely, I've appreciated working with him for the last few years, and we owe a lot to him. And I think it's been working well for everybody. It's nice to see that something like Scotland can really help bring something so great to you guys over here in the States.
Oh man, we very much appreciate it. And very much appreciate y'all being on the DU podcast.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks to everybody out there for listening and for supporting wetlands and waterfowl conservation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the DU Podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit www.ducks.org/DU Podcast for resources based on today's topics, as well as access to more episodes. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks. Stay tuned to the Ducks.